Who's had the greatest impact on your life? Who's been the most impactful person you've ever met? In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the most impactful coach I ever knew. Coley White was the first coach I ever worked for, and he is without a doubt the greatest coach I've ever worked with. He was as tough as nails. He worked part-time as a bouncer in a bar in the roughest part of town, and he took no foolishness off of anyone, anytime, anywhere. But he loved kids, and he spent a long career devoted to developing young men. Coley seemed to know everybody, and he knew the kids, and he knew their families. In addition to coaching and bouncing, he ran recreation gyms in the summertime. I doubt there was ever any coach who impacted more young men in a positive way than Coley White. He not only worked with these young men when they played for him, but he mentored them for decades after they played. When the high school coaches were having problems with a kid, they turned to Coley for help. When I coached with him, he had 48 uniforms, and he had 48 kids on the football team, and all 48 played in every game. The last teams he had before he retired, there were over 100 uniforms and over 100 kids on the team, and every one of them played in every game. And he won almost every one of those games. I was fortunate to get a chance to learn from him, and I learned fast. The first day of football practice in 1973, my very first practice ever as a real coach, I corrected a kid named Willie who was loafing through a drill. The kid did not like me correcting him, and he had something to say back, or at least he tried to say something back. He didn't get more than 2 words out of his mouth before Coley appeared out of nowhere, whacked the kid across the helmet, looked at me and said, "Don't you ever let one talk back to you again." Lesson learned. I never did. Willie and everyone else on that team learned a valuable lesson that day as well. Now, before you get too upset about, Coley whacking a kid in the helmet, you have to understand 1973 was a much different time. Some of the things that were done routinely in the 70s as a teacher or a coach, you can never get away with today. For example, not only did principals paddle, so did teachers. I had a paddle. A student made it for me in shop class, and then he wanted to be the first one I used it on. You really didn't need to use it much. I could just open the drawer it was in, and kids would get straight really fast. My first principal was Joe Curvin, and he was a former football coach. He ran a tight ship. If a student was sent to the office, there were no questions asked. The student got 3 licks with the paddle or 3 days at home. You could choose. You didn't want to get paddle? Well, then there's the phone. Call your mom to come get you. Now, my deal, if punishment was necessary, was that I would give you 1 lick, or I could write you up, send you to the office, and they'd give you 3. 9 times out of 10, kids are going to take that 1 lick from me. Sure saved a lot of paperwork. Now, not long after that, they took away teacher paddling, which was probably a pretty good idea. Any paddling after that was done in the presence of an administrator. Now, you still had some principals who wanted you to paddle your own students from time to time in their office. When I worked for Mitchell Baker at McBee High School, he would sometimes see me in the outer office. He'd call for me to come into his office and paddle one for him. My arm's tired, is what he'd say. Mr. Baker typically liked for me to administer discipline to football players. He knew I was tough on them. So sometimes he left it entirely up to me what their punishment would be. But sometimes he wanted me to paddle them in his office. The most memorable time that he called me in involved two players who seemed to find their way to his office on a fairly regular basis. There was anything major, some just little bits of foolishness or the other. They were good kids, but they liked to have their little fun. If they were on a British detective show, David and Jerry would be what they called frequent flyers. They had form. They had previous. Yeah, I've been watching way too many of those British detective shows. This time, though, Mr. Baker was absolutely furious. He was about as mad as I've ever seen him. He called me to leave my classroom and come to his office immediately. Folks, that's never good. Never good. He wanted me to know exactly what they'd done and to help punish them. I'm too mad. I might hurt somebody, is what he said to me. So he told me that David and Jerry had been throwing sticks at Timmy, who was a disabled kid in a wheelchair. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These two hung out with Timmy from time to time, and I'd never known either one of them to do something that was malicious or to hurt someone. You know, all their previous escapades just involved regular old teenage stupidity. I was furious. Why in the hell would you throw sticks at that kid? I asked him. Why are you picking on Timmy? I can't believe you would do something that disgusting. Now, I was really ripping into them while they just stood there with their heads down. I want an answer. Why did you do something like this? Jerry looked up and answered for the both of them. You told us to treat him like everybody else, so we did. Now, this story should be a good lesson to young coaches out there. Sometimes even your favorite players are going to get you called into the principal's office. Anyhow, let's get away from the paddling and back to the original story, which is about Coley and something far more serious than throwing sticks. It involved a gun. Now, Coley dealt with issues in his own way. He really didn't have a lot of discipline issues because kids respected him. He stayed at the junior high and the middle school level his entire career. That's where he wanted to be. And it's where he believed he could have the biggest impact. It was never about being in the limelight for Coley. I don't even know the countless number of lives he changed or lives he saved. His biggest asset, he knew how to talk to kids. I mentioned earlier that he ran recreation programs at the gym in the summer. And for a summer or two, I helped him out. The gym was in the roughest part of town, and it was open to anyone in the community who came in. During most of the day, it was mostly young people. Later in the day, older people in the community came in to play basketball. That's when it really got interesting. One day, the game with young adults got very chippy. There was a lot of trash talk, and then there was some pushing, and then a fight broke out. At that point, we stopped the game and we cleared the floor. We wanted to let everybody cool down for a little while. But there was one young man who got the short end of the altercation and who left the gym very angry. Not long after that, another teen came over to Coley and told him that the young man had gone home to get a gun. Coley came and got me and explained the situation to me. We got to keep somebody from getting killed in here. Now, I had zero experience at that time with altercations involving guns. Coley had enough experience for both of us. He said to me, "You come back me up, but let me do the talking, and I'll handle it." Now, the idea that I would go stand in a door with him to stop someone from coming in with a gun kind of shows you the amount of trust I had in that man. So we went around and we locked all the doors to the gym except the main entrance. And then we went to the front door to wait on the young man. And it wasn't long before he appeared, carrying something wrapped in a towel. And he was just as mad as he had been when he left just minutes earlier. Like Coley, I knew the young man. Not as well as Coley, but I knew him. He had played for Coley. His brother had played for me. "Hey, Bobby, what you doing, man?" Coley started with him. "I thought you'd gone home to cool off a little bit. I don't think it's a good idea for you to come back in this afternoon. Why don't you just chill and come on back tomorrow?" "No, Coach. I need to talk to Sammy," Bobby said. "I got to get something straight. He disrespected me. He tried to punk me in front of everybody. I can't let that stand." Now, Coley is standing next to me. We're blocking the door as we talked. Coley asked him, "What you got in that towel, Bobby?" "I got a gun, Coach, and I'm going to set Sammy straight with it. I'm going to shoot his ass." Whoa, Bobby," Coley said. "You need to think about it a minute before you do that. You'll go to jail. Somebody else is liable to shoot you. And what happens if somebody else gets hurt? What if you hurt one of these kids in here?" "I don't care about any of that," Bobby said. "I'll go to jail before I let somebody treat me like that. I'm going in there and I'm going to kill that so-and-so." Except Bobby didn't say so-and-so. Coley turned to a new tact. "But Bobby, Coach Green and I never did anything to you. I coached you. Coach Green coached your brother. We've always been good to you, haven't we?" "Yeah, Coach, y'all have. Ain't gonna shoot y'all, just Sammy." "But if you shoot him in here, me and Coach Green are gonna get into trouble. We'll get fired. You want us to lose our jobs?" "No, sir. I like y'all." So Coley looked at him and, "So why do you have to shoot him in here then? Why can't you wait? Shoot him somewhere else." "He'll get his posse together if I do that," Bobby said. "Right now, it's just me and him, and I'm going to kill him." At that point, Coley just kind of shook his head. I got you, Bobby. He deserves shooting. Look, why can't you just shoot him when he leaves school property before he gets home? He's got to walk right out of here. He's got to walk right through this door and right through that gate right over there. You can just be on the other side. He can't get away, and it's off school property. So me and Coach Green won't get into trouble. How's that sound? We've always been straight with you, Bobby. Can you do this for me? So Bobby stood there. You could see he was thinking. His posture kind of changed a little bit. He said, okay, I can do that. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to wait for him. Coley was like, good. Just make sure you let him get off the school grounds and make sure you don't shoot anybody else. Bobby turned and walked away and went out beyond the fence. Coley turned to me and said, you keep an eye on Bobby from in here somewhere. Make sure he doesn't come back inside the gate. I'm going to go and talk to Sammy. I looked at him and I said, what would you have done if he'd come through the door with that gun? And he said, Sammy'd be dead. And he just laughed and walked away. But we still weren't out of the woods. We had a guy outside the gate with a gun waiting to shoot someone that we still had in the gym. I asked Coley if he was going to call the cops. Not if I can avoid it. They'll just send Bobby to prison. I don't want to see that happen. He's worth saving. And I have a plan. The plan was fairly simple. Coley told Sammy to wait in the gym and not to leave and not to get anywhere near the door until we closed up. Now, Sammy liked to talk a good game, but Sammy didn't want to get shot. This being the mid-70s, he didn't have a cell phone that he could use to call for help. At the end of the day, everyone exited through the front door except Coley and me and Sammy. Coley had told them, get out quickly, don't hang around at the gate. And they did what he said. Coley and I locked up the gym, and then we took Sammy out the back door where our cars were parked. And Coley stashed him in the trunk of his great big Lincoln sedan. Coley said, I'm going to drive out first with Sammy. You come right behind me, shut and lock the gate. So out he went, with Sammy hidden safely in his trunk. I could still see him rolling out of there, leaned back in the seat of that big old sedan, his arm propped up on the window and a toothpick planted firmly in his teeth, nodding at Bobby as he went by with Bobby's target safely hidden away in the trunk. I was right behind him. I stopped, shut, and locked the gate. And I saw Bobby beyond the gate and waved at him as I passed by. Y'all, I was scared to death. My heart was about to pound out of my chest. Now, I don't know how many lives Coley saved that day. Definitely Sammy's, but quite possibly some innocent bystanders. And without a doubt, he saved Bobby's life, and he was worth saving. As I said, Coley knew how to talk to kids. Next episode, we'll talk about encountering something else that's scary, dealing with HR, and trying not to get yourself or someone else fired in the process. And we'll encounter a modern day Joe Friday. I hope to see you then.